The race to the chase heats up as the Cup Series breaks a 65-year break and makes a return to Plymouth, Wisconsin. Welcome to Road America, the 20th race of the 2021 campaign, the Jockey Made in America 250. This July 4th weekend at Road America is going to be blistering hot for the fans, drivers, and crew here today. 95 degrees, but it's going to feel like 100, 9-mile-an-hour wind, 5% chance of rain with a partly sunny, only 26% cloud cover. Welcome back to the episode of MDK RaceDay. My name is Jet. Hope y'all are having a wonderful morning. And we're going to get you revved up with everything you need to know for today's second NASCAR Cup Series race in 65 years here at Road America. July 4th weekend, tradition that has been made for decades at Daytona, then for a few years at Indianapolis, and then it was moved to Road America. And there's a lot of storylines, a lot of unknowns we're going to unpack in this episode. But first, we're going to jump right into with our inside the line storylines. We have two stories to talk about. The first one revolves around the iRacing Pro Invitational Series. Now, if you remember this from last year, it basically dominated the COVID-19 situation. You know, when COVID-19 first came into the US and shut everything down, NASCAR collaborated with iRacing to create the Pro Invitational Series, and it became a hit, a massive hit. A lot of people were talking about it. It helped iRacing, it helped NASCAR from an esports perspective, and they brought it back this year. Even though things are opening up, they brought it back this year. They were going to hold 5 races on Fox Sports, then the other 5 races on NBC Sports. Well, apparently NASCAR has decided to kill it entirely already before NBC even aired an episode of the Pro Invitational. According to Adam Stern, NASCAR informed the industry yesterday that it will be discontinuing the iRacing Pro Invitational for the rest of 2021, although it could return for future special events. According to the report, it says as the US is starting to open back up on everything post-COVID-19 pandemic, the viewership and just the overall interest of the Pro Invitational has gone down dramatically, and so they've decided to just kill it. I also think NBC probably didn't even want to have the iRacing Pro Invitational, so that probably also kind of weighed into canceling the series for the rest of 2021. And honestly, I'm glad. To be honest with you, I didn't really care about the Pro Invitational when it came back. I thought, you know, it was not necessary. I thought it was a cool one-time thing, you know, during the pandemic last year. But with things opening up, you know, practices coming back, you know, with everything starting to come back to normal, it just wasn't necessary. It wasn't needed. I know they held a race on Bristol Dirt. They had one on the Chicago Street Course. But it was nice and all. Like, I really didn't care for the event, and apparently a lot of others also didn't care for this event. So I have no feeling to it, and to be quite honest with you, I'm kind of glad that they killed the series. Our next story revolves around Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his race team, Junior Motorsports. Now, with the next gen car coming next year and the new additions of brand new owners like Justin Marks, Michael Jordan, Colleague Racing, GMS Racing, maybe we're wondering, will Junior Motorsports join the Cup Series next season? And while Dale Jr. wants to, he has said it quite bluntly, he wants at least 2 charters in the Cup Series. With the money that they're going for, it looks like it won't happen. Now, Dale Jr. gave his thoughts on Junior Motorsports moving up to Cup during an interview with Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, and the statement said, quote, "The charter is the only roadblock. I mean, the way that they're talking about this new car, it's going to be more expensive to be in the Xfinity Series than it would be in the Cup Series. I don't see how that's really possible. The numbers that you hear, as far as what the new car in the Cup Series is going to cost and what it should cost to run it, sound very conservative and very positive. Too good to be true, but we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, they're right." Dale Jr. further went on to explain his thoughts on Junior Motorsports going to Cup Racing during an episode of Ask Dale Jr. on the Dale Jr. Download.
Cup charters that is happening.
Yeah, the Cup charter conversation is crazy. We learn something wild. We hear a new rumor every week. Colleague hearing they spent $10 million a piece on each of those charters. Don't know if that's true or not. You're hearing that now. I thought that the charter market was around $5 million, $7 million. Now you're hearing it's north of $10 million for a charter. Just, you don't know what to believe. But that's way out of my range, buddy. I'll tell you that. Junior Motorsports ain't going to be racing no Cup Series if that's what the charters are going for. I'll just be honest. So, with that said, though, man, that's a great thing. The fact that the charters are going up in value just as we speak, that is exactly what they intended. I mean, if you're an owner in this sport 10 years ago, if you wanted to sell your team, you had nothing to sell but parts and cars and pieces that are going to be sold for pennies on the dollar. That was it. When you got out, you really took a loss, kind of like buying and selling boats. Anyways, that's another story.
What was that about?
Yeah. Well, I've never had a boat appreciate, and I've never been able to sell one for what I paid for it. And that's the way race teams are, and racing equipment is the same way. You know, when these teams fold or sell, they auction this stuff off, and people get it for you know, a tenth or 20% of what it was worth. So now, if you're an owner and you have a charter, you got real value. You got something that people want and something that people are willing to pay for. That you know, if you're selling a charter, you're selling it for $10 million. That's $10 million that you weren't going to get when you sold your team 5 years ago. So that's amazing that they've somehow created this charter system and it works. So as bad as I want 2 charters for Junior Motorsports to go cup racing, I love the idea that these things are expensive and they're going up. And that's a good thing for all of us. That's a good thing for the whole industry.
And yeah, you could look at, for example, with 𝙎𝙏𝙊𝙍𝙍𝙍, when they sold their NASCAR team over to Team Trackhouse, at least with this charter system, as much as I hate it, at least with this charter system, it gives owners an exit in a good way. You know, a lot of times whenever a team or an owner has to sell a team, they sell it for chump change, you know, or for pennies on the dollar. Now you can sell it for real money with tens of millions of dollars with these charters, plus the cars and the buildings and the equipment and all this stuff. So at least it does give owners a way out, you know, if they are struggling. But that would suck to see Junior not being able to make it up into the Cup Series as a team owner, especially with the fact that Junior wants to move up the Cup, but the roadblock is the charter. But we don't know exactly for sure. I have heard rumors that Junior said that the charters are going for $10 million, if not even more, which I can kind of see. Like it is a pretty realistic number. So if that's the case, unfortunately, Junior Motorsports will have to settle for the Xfinity Series, which does suck because I'm pretty sure everyone wants to see Junior Motorsports make the move to Cup. And if they do, let's just say in an alternate universe, if they do make it to the Cup Series, it would dramatically change the silly season driver chart. But yeah, that's for future episodes. That's for the offseason. Let's move on to today with the Road to America. We have 7 races ago until the NASCAR playoffs begin at Darlington. Currently at the moment, 11 drivers are locked into the playoffs. Kyle Larson with the most playoff points with 4. Truex second. Bowman third. Kyle Busch becomes the 4th driver to win more than 1 race with his win at Pocono last weekend. And then you have Logano, Blaney, Byron, Elliott, Keselowski, Bell, and Michael McDowell, the Daytona 500 champion with 1 win apiece. They are colored in green, which means at the moment they are locked in. Now Denny Hamlin, he is the first one without a win. Currently, at the moment, he is the points leader, which means if the playoffs were to end right now, he would not only get an automatic lock-in to the championship or to the playoffs, he would gain the playoff points. I believe it was 15 for being the regular season champion. However, Kyle Larson, he is just 2 points behind Hamlin in the overall season standings. So Hamlin, he is going to have to step it up in these next 7 races, but he has a massive gap ahead of 16th place. 334 points. Kevin Harvick, 158 points. Austin Dillon, 14th, 91 points. Now, the men that you see colored in yellow, Tyler Reddick and Kurt Busch, they are in the danger zone. That means they can fall out of the top 16 at the end of this race. If you're not in yellow or red, that means you are safe at the moment. However, for Reddick and Kurt Busch, if they have a bad race today and one of the bottom 4 have a good run, they can fall out of the top 16. Now, Chris Buescher, he is the first one out, -3. Daniel Suarez in 18th, -48. Bubba Wallace with a great top 5 finish last weekend at Pocono moves up to 20th in standings. He is now tied with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for minus 54 points behind in 20th, Stenhouse in 19th. Now let's take a look at the odds to win Road America presented by DraftKings. Since we are at a road course, no surprise to see Chase Elliott at the top of the board, plus 250, but the hottest driver in NASCAR is teammate Kyle Larson, right behind him, plus 350. Martin Truex Jr., also another driver that seems to run extremely well on the road courses, third best, 600 plus. And Kyle Busch, who won yesterday in the Xfinity Series for his 101st career Xfinity Series win at plus 800. Joe Logano 1200, Denny Hamlin 1400. Teammates William Byron and Alex Bowman 2200, 2500 respectively. Alongside 2500 is AJ Allmendinger, with Ryan Blaney rounding out the top 10 with plus 3000. Alongside him is Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski 3500. Then Christopher Bell, Kurt Busch, and Austin Cindric. He's a dark horse a lot of drivers are going to be looking at, plus 4000. Ross Chastain and Tyler Reddick plus 6600. Chris Buescher and Michael McDowell plus 8000. And Chase Briscoe plus 10,000. Okay, so expectations. What can we expect in this race today? Well, we're going to have very little to go off of. Currently at the moment, this is going to be uploaded before qualifying. So the only type of information we can go off of was the one and only practice session that took place on Saturday afternoon. It was an hour of practice and a lot happened. There are some spots that could provide trouble for some of the drivers in this race today. 3 spots especially. The first one is turn number 1. You're going to enter in with a lot of momentum, a lot of speed. You're not to rely heavily on the brakes. Could lead to a possibility of wheel hop. We saw it in practice with the 7A car of Kyle Tilley. He wheel hopped into turn number 1 and spun. That was one of many red flags in this practice session. The next area to watch out for potentially is the carousel. We've seen some drivers get off into the grass. Perfect example, Ryan Preece. At the beginning of the practice session, maybe I think 5 minutes into it, he got into the grass, damaged the split of the race car, and he has to go to a backup car and will start at the rear of this race. And probably the most important part of the racetrack to avoid chaos is the kink. We saw a lot of drivers in the Xfinity Series, at least in practice, get off into the grass and spin or hit the wall or have some form of issue in the kink. The Cup Series was no different. Even some of the best, Kyle Busch, 59-time winner, 2-time Cup Series champion, he got in the grass. In fact, he couldn't see. Once Cody Ware got in the grass, smoke just covered the racetrack. Kyle Busch spun, went into the wall, and as a result, he had to bring out the backup car, and he will start at the rear of this race. Also, Brad Keselowski, he also spun in the kink, didn't hit anything, but did bring out the red flag in that practice session. And even in the Xfinity Series, we saw a lot of drivers have issues in turn number 1. Spencer Pumpelly, I think that's how you pronounce his name, got up into the tire barriers in turn number 1 near the end there. Sam Mayer had a massive accident also in turn number 1. We even saw this massive crash off of turn number 1 right before turn 2 during that little straightaway that collected numerous drivers like Maya Snyder and 2 and others. So there are a lot of potential areas for danger, especially turn number 1 and I feel like the kink. Those are the 2 areas that could be chaos spots, to say the least. Now, what about some drivers to watch out for? I think the first driver you need to watch out for is Austin Cindric. He had a really good race at Circuit of the Americas the last time he was in a Cup car. Basically, anytime you're at a road course, keep your eye on Austin Cindric because that guy can wheel a race car turning left and right. Today was no different. In the practice session, he was 3rd fastest in the first and only practice session. Only 4/10 behind Kurt Busch, who did have the fastest lap at 133.849 seconds. Also, Kyle Busch, he's going to be a driver to look out for regardless. He was 2nd fastest in that practice session, only 2/10 off of his brother Kurt. Now, he is gonna have to start at the back of the field regardless of where he qualifies later today because he had to bring out the backup car. So he's going to have to start at the rear, but he does have a lot of experience. He just won the Xfinity race yesterday, so he's got some belts under his system that can help him attack this racetrack, especially the areas that I talked about. Areas like the kink, like turn 1, like the carousel, like the passing opportunities on this racetrack. He's got some reps under his belt that could help him in this race. And also the fact that he won the last time the Cup Series were on track at the 2nd Pocono race. Even with all the controversy and issues with the transmission, he still won. So he's got a lot of momentum on his side. And he's probably the only driver that could challenge Hendrick Motorsports. So regardless, you're going to have to watch Kyle Busch to see what he can do as he moves his way up towards the front. Another couple of drivers I think you need to look out for is how Ross Chastain and Kurt Busch respond. Now, if you haven't been living under a rock, then you know the news regarding Chip Ganassi Racing and Team Trackhouse. CGR is shutting down at the end of the season, their NASCAR program, which means that Kurt Busch and Chastain, they're going to be free agents. Now, Kurt Busch, he has been talking with Justin Marks even before the Chip Ganassi deal even was announced. He had been talking with Trackhouse. So who knows? Maybe Kurt Busch can use this race to show Justin Marks that, hey, you should consider me to be your second driver. He has been a top candidate for a second car team at Trackhouse. Also has been a top candidate for 2311 Racing. Ross Chastain, who's trying to fight his way into the playoffs. This is the beginning, or this is the start of Ross Chastain to not only make a run to the playoffs, but also to impress other owners to say, hey, I'm available. You need a driver? I'm your guy. And of course, if you're going to talk about a road course, you cannot talk about road course racing and not include Chase Elliott as a driver to watch. This guy, he's been a god on the road course in NASCAR. Let's take a look at some of the stats that he has on road course racing. He is the road course king. In the last 7 races, he has won 5 road course races. His average finish in the last 7 races, a solid 4.0, the best of all Cup Series drivers. He has a stat of winning 4 races in a row from Watkins Glen 2019 till the Roval last year. And look at his stats. Since 2018, average finish 6.91, 6 wins, 8 top 5s, 9 top 10s, and nearly 300 laps led. All of them are number 1 in terms of active drivers, and he has finished inside the top 2 in 6 of the last 7 road course races. That is not just being good, that is absolutely dominating. That's domination at its finest right there. Now you could say, well, hey, we're heading to a brand new racetrack. You could say that as a way to maybe say Chase Elliott might not be so good. And yes, that is a fair point. The last time Chase Elliott ran at Road America, was I think back in 2014 in the Xfinity Series, or 2015 if I'm not mistaken. And based on his fastest lap, he was only 14th fastest in his fastest lap in the one and only practice session, 1.2 seconds behind Kurt Busch. But still, that was practice. We're going to see what he can do during qualifying and, of course, during race time. He also includes some other drivers like Kyle Larson. Regardless of what track it is, he is going to be a driver that you're going to have to watch out for. He was 8th fastest in practice and had the 4th best average finish in that practice session, running 14 laps with a 138.143 average time. Now, I think a driver that might surprise a lot of people is Chase Briscoe. Now, Briscoe has had a horrible, just awful, god-awful year. And I think this race could potentially offer some light at the end of the tunnel. He finished 3rd and 7th in his 2 road course races, or Road America starts in the Xfinity Series. And if you look at his practice sessions, it's pretty impressive. His fastest lap was 9th fastest, only just under a second behind Kurt Busch, but he had the best average finish, or at least the best average lap time out of anyone in that one and only practice session, 136.626, and he ran 10 laps. So Chase Briscoe, we know he can run really good on the road courses. He proved that in Xfinity, and I think having a good run here at the Cup Series at Road America, I think it's very possible because, again, he's one of the few that has experience of running in race conditions, at least at Road America. And again, he's put up some really fast lap times, top 10 in the fastest lap average and top of the board on the best average lap time. So those are some of the drivers I think we need to watch out for. Now, as for usually at the end of these videos, I give out my pick to win. Well, because we don't have qualifying, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to offer my pick to win or a driver I think who's going to win pole because I really don't know. There was a lot of stopping in that practice session because of the amount of cautions and the amount of red flags. No one ran more than, had a 10-lap average. No one ran 10 consecutive laps. Only a handful of drivers did 5-lap averages. So I can't even go off of that, really. There was a lot of stopping, a lot of red flags that you really couldn't get into a long green flag run. I know, some drivers did 14 laps like Bell or Byron. They ran 14 laps, but that wasn't consecutively. They probably ran 5, came back, another 5, came back. It wasn't consecutively. So I don't really have much to go off of to give my genuine thoughts of who I really think is going to win this race. But regardless, I think it's going to be a very fun and a very exciting race, and I cannot wait to watch. But that is going to conclude this episode of MDK Race Day from Road America. Thank y'all so much for watching. Tell me in the comment section down below, who do you think is going to win this race? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your July 4th weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series race at Road America. We'll see you next time.